Hey everyone, sorry for the quality. The rest of the video isn't like this, but this is my first interview I'm doing as part of the Perfect Practice series. I'm talking with CZitoMusic, who I've collabed before. He's a really good guitarist. And if you don't know the concept of the series, we're going over basically how different musicians practice and how you can optimize your practice so you don't have to spend as much time actually doing it. Because I feel like a lot of this information is not out there. You know, you're kind of just told just practice. Some people don't really know what that means or how to do that. We go over consciously practicing, attention span, and guitar heroes, and how guitar heroes have kind of changed from back then to now, and how guitar heroes influence how you practice, the way you practice, and things like that.
My channel, I go under CZitoMusic. My real name is Cal. Well, my full name is Cologero, but not too many people can get that right the first couple times trying. So I just say, call me Cal. Makes it a lot easier. But on my channel, geez, I swear I've been on YouTube since like 2009 is when I made this channel. But started grinding on it around 2017-ish. Just trying to figure out like my content, what niche I wanted to get into. And right now what's working for me is guitar lessons on like metalcore songs, hardcore songs that, really don't have that much music out there. It's pretty hard to find nowadays. But when I like doing like film covers, video game music covers, just stuff that like you don't really see too much of, more of like an online sort of content basically orientation of that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's kind of like where our channels overlap a bit, is the video game and like film stuff, because that's like what my channel started with, and for the most part has kept doing. Do you play anything else besides guitar?
I actually started first on piano when I was a kid. Like I hated it, but I sort of grew an appreciation for it afterwards, maybe in my like later teen years, around like 14, 15, or I guess you could call that my mid-teen years. But like I started getting into more rock, classic rock. As a kid though, I grew up with that stuff because my dad always used to play it. And yeah, I sort of had this like hip hop phase and stuff like that. But going back to piano, remember Guitar Hero back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that game was huge at the
Yeah.
time, and I started really getting into like those set lists that were on that game, and I would try to basically transcribe them on piano, but it was just never the same. So then one day I'm just like, hey, you know what? Let's get the real guitar and let's see how it goes.
Cool. So you've been like sticking with guitar mainly since then? Like, have you gone back to the piano at all, or?
I like noodle on it here and there. I like dabbling into it when I'm trying to figure out like the film music and stuff like that, or video game music, because like it's very orchestral
Yeah.
orientated. So it's easier to figure that out like on a actual piano or keyboard rather than sometimes I do it on guitar. I mean, I feel like those like high leads that you hear in orchestral music, those are a little easier to figure out on guitar, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's what I use it mainly for. And like I play bass now, ukulele. Well, I have to teach ukulele, so that's why I had to like learn it and know it. And I want to get a drum pad. I was actually gonna pick up a drum pad and some drumsticks this week because like I know basic drums, but I'm not a drummer at all. So I've always wanted to actually pursue that instrument, like kind of as a secondary instrument.
How long have you been like playing guitar for then?
So guitar like started for me when I was 17. I'm 31 now. So geez, 17, 27, 14 years.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. That's like almost the same amount of time I've been playing actually.
Oh, nice.
I think
Yeah.
it'll be 14 years like in September or like November. But yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think for me, like in around April, May-ish is like when it'll be like 14, right on the
Okay.
dot. Was that your first instrument too?
Yeah, yeah. I had like this keyboard at home because my dad was really into it, and I just kind of screw around on it, you know.
Yeah,
But
of course.
then I played Guitar Hero as a kid as well, and like Rock Band and stuff, and yeah, I was into like sort of the older like rock stuff, like Bon Jovi, and then like just stuff around that, and then I always listened to Linkin Park and like Three Days Grace as a kid.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Those are
And
like the
then
gateways right there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so weird to like look back on that because I think because I really discovered drop C through like metalcore and all that, but like I'm pretty sure 3 Days Grace has a decent amount of songs in drop C, but I just don't like
Yes.
connect them to that, just
Yeah, yeah,
the
for
way I
sure. They
listen to
do
them.
though. Yeah, they actually have some lower tunings
Yeah,
in
yeah,
their music, especially the
yeah.
early albums.
Like music was never really a part of my life growing up, as weird as that sounds. Like my parents listened to songs from like their country, which never really interested me, and then here I just kind of listened to whatever Guitar Hero had, and then Linkin Park and 3 Days Grace. But yeah, there was someone offering guitar lessons at my school, so we signed up for those, and I just kind of kept going with it from there. So yeah, so like yeah, it is my first instrument, and I started when I was 8, and I'm 21 now, so. Um, Oh, I guess it'll be 13 years in September then. Yeah, not 14, but still.
Yeah, yeah, no, still that's still a I mean like I feel like that's like a good amount of time to really like nail your instrument and like really okay, this is like my primary one now.
Yeah. But it's interesting because as I was waiting in the lobby, a mother came in with her child, and she was kind of talking about how for her family they generally always started their kids quite young with music, but with her specifically her daughter, they didn't do that. I don't know why. Maybe she didn't want to do it. And so they were having like a sort of a back and forth with like the receptionist person there about it, because I guess her like the mother started music when she was like 8, and the daughter is 13 right now. And then the receptionist said a really good point, which is like a lot of the world's best guitarists like started when they were like 16, 17, sometimes like up until their like early 20s. But I think I hear it a lot too, where like you like have to start young with music, and yeah, I feel like I guess it helps, but it's definitely not
I
like,
think it's bullshit.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd probably know better because you teach, right?
Yeah, for sure. It kind of sucks. Like, I don't have like brand new students that because I took over a guy that had to leave. So I basically took over his set of students. So like they've already been playing guitar for quite a while. I think the longest was right now of my students that I have is around 6 years, around there.
Okay.
But when I did couple years back. So like just to rewind my situation, just to make it a little more clear, I used to teach back in like 2017 to around 2021. Then I basically just took a year off just to because then I became a full-time teacher and just was busy with that. But now that I'm sort of back to like part-time teaching, so just like basically doing substitutes and supply teaching, I was able to add in a day now back into my old jobs, which I've always loved it. Like, I mean, it's just, I always loved teaching music and just sharing that sort of knowledge with everyone. But yeah, I had like the old place, I had students range from all types of ages, from like as little as 6 to like just moms, dads even. I actually
Yeah.
have a dad right now. I think he's probably like in his late 30s. Literally just picked up the guitar. We're working on About a Girl by Nirvana.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like going back to, what's the proper age to start? Like I feel like just start and see how it goes. Because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I feel like you got to find that instrument that you gravitate towards. I think people give up guitar because at first it looks like it's easy. Like all the when you watch the great players play, they make it look like it's like they can just do it in their sleep, but they don't see the awkward phases, as I like to call it, of guitar, where you can barely just like hold a pick, hold your left hand or right hand on the fretboard, and
Yeah.
you're just making sounds.
Yeah. I've also heard a lot of people drop it just because of like the calluses and like the pain from it. Like, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I might make a video on in like the perfect practice series of like how to approach learning something in the first place, because I think my situation is kind of unique in the fact that I didn't listen to much music growing up. Like the bands I mentioned I listened to, but I was never like super into it. And so when
Right.
I picked up the guitar, I didn't actually have like an end goal or something I wanted to play. I really just played what my guitar teacher gave me, and I just like had a ton of fun with it in my when I first started. And like I was never really discouraged from it, and I don't know why that is, but I have a theory that like I wasn't surrounded by uh like all these great players and stuff. Like I
Yeah,
wasn't watching them; they weren't on my head, and so I never really like had an ideal to compare myself to. Like, oh, like I want to be like this guy, and he can do all this
yeah,
stuff,
or
but I can
sound
do
like
this.
that guy. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. Like I really had no like guitar heroes growing up in a sense, and so
That's
I
interesting. Yeah, that's
yeah, and I
you don't hear that all the time.
yeah, and I think again I think that really helped me like just really enjoy the instrument for what it was when I was learning it and not get discouraged. There was one point in my entire guitar like career, I guess, where I think I left it for about a year. Like 3 years in, but that's I don't even know what the reason for that was. Like I just left it, then picked it back up, and like never put it down again. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like you can't force someone to not have like musical heroes or inspirations or ideals to strive towards, but it's just I feel like that would definitely help people in getting into their instruments and not getting discouraged is to like actually learn how to enjoy it and just don't focus on that stuff too much at the start.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think you kind of have like a better advantage of not knowing who these guitar heroes are. If you don't, let's say you're just a beginner musician just starting out and you just want to like pick it up. I think like it's just better, like, if you don't know Kirk Hammett or James Hetfield or Dimebag Darrell, like I think because like when you start like it's kind of sucks with me. I knew those guys, like I knew how great they were because I used to love Pantera, Metallica, obviously, other bands as well, Van Halen. So when you know like the level of skill that these guys have, it kind of can draw you back per se, just because like you're trying to get to their level at like such a fast pace, but you don't know that Dimebag's been playing. I think he was like 8 or 9 too when he started,
Okay.
and yeah, like I think just having the kind of like that ignorant, for lack of a better term, mindset where like you just picked it up and like you're just so happy with it and like you don't have that those people to compare to at the start. I think it's good because it'll help you develop your own voice in the long run too. And I think too, like having to know, finding out about these players later on, it helps you out too because you can see like, oh, okay, like how's he doing that? Like how's he muting the strings in that way where he's playing multiple notes, but like you don't hear those, the noise from those unwanted strings, let's say. So because sometimes you don't get that with some guitar teachers. Like for me personally, they taught the book, they taught the theory, which I was more into the theory anyways. I liked to know what I'm doing actually in music. So like, playing a minor seventh, augmented chords, diminished, whatever. So that was just me personally. But at the same time, I think like, especially with a guitar instrument, like you don't need to know that theory if you don't want to. Like if you want to just play chords, it just depends what you want to accomplish out of that instrument.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, I like that you touched on that. Like, there definitely is a place for like your guitar heroes, musical heroes, all that. It's just, yeah, it's just kind of like striving that balance and knowing when to like, I guess, focus on that stuff. But like,
Yeah.
it's just I appreciate that you touched on the other side of it too.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure. Also, like I think too, like you just gotta kind of have that realization too. Be realistic with yourself. You might not be able to play or shred as fast as Van Halen or tap as Van Halen, or even like nowadays these modern guitarists like Jason Richardson, Tim Henson, like they're just godlike.
yeah, they're crazy.
So like sure, try out like a Polyphia song, see how it goes, but like at the end of the day, be realistic with yourself, like know like what you're capable of, and if you want to strive for that level, by all means try it out, go ahead. That's why I learned a Polyphia or a Jason Richardson song, but it might not just work out in, and just don't get disappointed by that.
The situation for me with singing is different, right? Because now I'm like, I've just through playing guitar, I know all these bands that I'm into, and
Right,
then so now
yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, I have these places where I want to be, But it was definitely like discouraging at the start and hard. But recently, what's helped is that I have made a lot of progress recently. But also, I'm just like genuinely really enjoying it. Like,
Yeah, nice. And that's what will make you just excel to the next level.
yeah, yeah, and I think like it's kind of the concept of this whole like perfect practice thing is that I think like learning guitar and like playing it and really analyzing it, I honestly think it taught me like how to learn things in general. I feel like I've been learning I've been learning French recently and I've been learning singing, and I just feel like I just feel like I'm doing really well with those things because I understand like how to practice stuff like that. And I think that all stems from just how much I practiced guitar, saw what worked, saw what didn't work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I think
yeah,
that same mindset, yeah, will work for anything because like it's like a discipline, right? Like a lot of people kind of forget that like learning an instrument and even playing in a band too. It's like a sports team. You know, if one person's like lagging or falling behind, like
yeah,
the whole band's gonna crumble too. And so yeah, just like having it, it works for everything like art, music, hell, learning French, learning different languages. Like it just having that like discipline of what works for you, what doesn't. It's gonna always help you out, and just yeah, it just it's crazy how like all those things kind of coincide with each other.
yeah, yeah.
I always found that interesting.
Like playing in a band is like that in itself is like a discipline because you have other people and like some might be lagging behind. It's just interesting because like I feel like in terms of sports, you always hear like um the team is as good as the worst player, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like that's even worse for bands because in most sports, your worst player's on the bench most of the time, right?
Right.
You can't
Yeah.
really bench a bandmate. You gotta
Oh
play with
no.
them,
Yeah.
so like you
For
gotta
sure.
have that
For
shit
sure.
like
Oh
nailed.
yeah, you gotta be like like you gotta be super super tight
Yeah,
because like I think I remember damn I shit I can't remember what the interview was, but I it was either an article or a YouTube video. I'm pretty sure it was a video of I'm gonna butcher his last name, Thomas Hake, I think, from
yeah,
Meshuggah,
yep,
the drummer of Meshuggah. I think he said that like when they what's the album that has Bleed on it? Obson?
yeah,
Obson, right? Yeah. The all the songs on that took 6 months to learn, but Bleed took 6 months alone to learn. I think it was something along
yeah.
those lines. Yeah, which I thought was like, wow. But you can like, I mean, that song is just crazy. I tried like learning the triplets on that. I thought like my wrist was just like, yeah, like it's like, what are you doing? Fuck off right now.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I've seen that video too. Yeah, I mean that like, I mean, we could have a whole episode on Meshuggah, honestly,
Oh,
because those guys
honestly,
are,
yeah,
yeah,
the pioneers right there of
yeah,
gent.
yeah, yeah. No, it's crazy, man. Like some of their breakdown, it's really weird. I haven't found this with another band. Like some of the breakdowns that Meshuggah has, like not only do they make me want to headbang, but they kind of make me want to dance too. Like they're so good at working like with these
They groove,
grooves and like
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
really well done. Like
That's the thing with them. They have like such catchy, like even I wouldn't like they're I feel like they're more a little bit progressive rather than, you know, your verse chorus bridge type of structure.
yeah,
But like the parts that they have, like they're very catchy. Like
yeah,
especially the one that we covered, ligature marks, I think.
yeah,
The like the whole opening is like it just sticks in your head, that pattern
yeah,
of the rhythm and then the leads when they enter, like it really just it's very memorable.
yeah. For me, it's that opening and then also the ending of the song when those guitars are doing like those super low chugs. Just like
Yeah.
it's just yeah, the way that rhythm is formed is just super like catchy and awesome. And then the leads that come on top of it too are like they're like yeah, they're just interesting. They're different. They're a little like the slides that you kind of have to do for those are a
Yeah,
little weird,
yeah,
but
for
like
sure. There's those like tiny nuances
yeah.
in them that just make them pop out for sure.
And even like the leads in that song, including those ends, aren't like they aren't crazy. They're really like they're sort of minimal in a way.
Yeah.
which Meshuggah kind of like they do both. I think yeah, they generally do both, but like yeah, I think for those where it was pretty minimal, which was yeah, it was just cool. I mean, you don't have to do crazy stuff all the time, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like yeah, those minimalistic songs they go a long way because like even nowadays like back when like I was just first getting into this genre like I would just look for like you got through your gateway bands like now it's like okay it's like you're like a junkie you just want like the next level of heaviness and like I just wanted to hear the heaviest shit that could just like slam my face to the wall kind of thing. Whereas now, that's like maybe me 5, 6 years ago, but now like I'm sort of into like that catchiness. Like I like the pop style of like song structures that they for me now like they just stick with me even more. Kind of like how Lorna Shore is doing it. Like their newest album, I don't know if you've listened to it, but it's very pop style. Like it has like
Okay.
a pop structure where it's like your intro, first verse, chorus,
Yeah.
breakdown, verse, bridge, whatever. But like they're catchy. Like they're very like they'll stick in your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I
It's
find like a lot of bands now they're doing that. They're doing like the mainstream like structure of like song.
yeah. I think I've noticed that too. I think it's really interesting to see. Like, I think for me, like specifically how metalcore has changed since like those like mid 2000s, like
Yeah,
all that
like
remains kill switch
2004 or
type thing.
5.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Oh
it's a
yeah.
lot
As I
different
lay
now.
dying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and I think it's sort of heading in that direction as well. But I think music in general, sort of across the board, seems to just be getting like more broad and broad. Like the sort of the lines between genres are like just fading away a little bit. I
Yeah.
think they're always going to be there, but it just seems like that just generally um, artists are just not caring as much and want to experiment more and do all this stuff, which I think is, I mean, awesome. That's just only a
Honestly,
good thing.
yeah. I think the those hardcore metal elitists in the community, they just like drag us down. Like just be open to that style, man.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Yeah.
it gets boring after a while.
Yeah, and it's like it's not even. You should also be open to it because you, even if you're not specifically with that style 100%, there are things you can take from that style
Oh, 100%.
to put
Yeah.
in your own music when and you can create like this other like thing that's not even necessarily either of the two, but is something different and like more unique. So I mean, yeah, that's something that's definitely changed in my writing. Is like I'll sometimes think like it'd be cool to like I've been using a lot of synths. Like my band's been using a lot of synths in their stuff,
Oh
and
yeah, nice.
like I don't necessarily like how bands like Born of Osiris do it, where like the synths can sort of. I feel like the synths almost take over the guitars and like
I find that too. They're too much in your face.
yeah. I mean, I like some songs by them. Just most of them, I don't like the way they use synths. But I'm like, yeah, like I can take sort of the like their synth style and put it into my music, but like manipulate it to where I like it, where I like it more like to me synths should add flavor and like just a bit more I guess nuance to the overall sound in this genre. Just personally, that's what I
Right.
like. It's kind of like how Periphery does it. I
For
know
sure. Yeah.
Periphery will like double their guitar lines with synths basically. And it's sometimes it's a bit more obvious, sometimes it's very subtle, but like it's just an example of like taking stuff from other genres even within your own like style of music. But yeah, there's I'll be writing songs and I'm like it'd be really cool if I could fit like a synth part here or like just a complete synth break here, but I don't know how that sounds. So like maybe I won't do it, but like now I'm a lot more like, well, just put it in there, see how it sounds, and maybe I'll
Yeah.
actually end up with something that's like that I just never thought I could, write or never thought could even be a thing before. So
Yeah, going back to like even just listening to other music, like I like I've been doing that a lot now. Like I'm not just listening to metal. I remember hearing another interview with Rob Zombie. He said something along the lines, just paraphrasing, like if you just listen to one style of music, like your music is gonna suck basically. Because and like in a sense, he's like totally right. Because a prime example of his music, like he's just all over the place. He's like another one that has like synths in his music, industrial elements, and like he's all over the place. Like you can hear like 70s style grooves, 80s style grooves in his songs too, but like catchy and still heavy. So I'm really big Rob Zombie fan as well. Like just love his films as well too. But going back to like listening to other styles, like even listening to like I'm not even a big fan of modern pop. I feel like nowadays you got to look for those like good artists in like the mainstream. Like for me, The Weeknd is pretty sick. Like I like his music, his that style like of pop production. Like I mean, like I feel like that's just top tier like production. Like in terms of like the way my music I want it to sound like, I want it to sound like just like the soundscape, like a pop song. Just like that quality of like mixing and mastering is just next level. That's why there's like that I found out there's like a specific decibel like that they put it to where like even if the song sucks and it's garbage, like people go back to listening to it because like it stimulates the ear because of that decibel level that it's at. Yeah. I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah.
So I like a song like what was that song? The Friday song back like what was that 5-6 years ago or something? Like it was so garbage, but everyone was singing it.
The way like the Rebecca Black one?
Yeah, that's it. Like it's such a garbage song. Like I feel like a third grader could have wrote it, but
yeah, I mean, yeah.
You can't lie. You know the lyric. I know the lyrics to it.
Do you play video games or?
You know, I was a huge gamer like in my teens and like even mid-20s, but like now I'm sort of I hop on every like honestly I just got to be in the mood for it. Like I don't hate video games, obviously not. Like I love them, but I just I don't know. I wish they stimulated me as well as they did back like 10 years ago.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say like because I feel like I've noticed that there seems to be quite a big overlap between like metalheads and like like video games. And it's
100%.
Yeah, it's interesting because like we both are into like video game music and orchestral music. We've done like covers of it on our channels and stuff, and like we're also into metal. So that's just kind of like an interesting theme I guess I keep noticing.
100%. Yeah, I see that all over like other people's channels as well.
The amount of like metal covers of like video game soundtracks is kind of insane too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There was like this there's this channel I discovered like maybe 3-4 months ago called Lame Genie. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
They cover video game music too, and like they'll do like the odd film songs here and there, but primarily they're video games. But they just released, wanted to check it out, but they released The Last of Us theme. So like, and they made it to their metal style, which I wanted to check it out soon. But like it's really sick seeing that like a lot of channels literally just built on covering video game music. And like I'm on Twitter and I see like a huge community on there like called VGM, video game music, and it's just like all these crazy guitar players that I've discovered on there too.
I don't know about you, but I really got into the music from Final Fantasy, and I
haven't checked it out, but like I know everyone says it's like God tier.
Yeah, it's really good, man. I even went to see so the Final Fantasy VII remake released in like 2020, and then last year in 2022, actually just around this time, like February, March, is when the orchestra from that game, they were doing like a world tour, and they came to Montreal, so I went to see them.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, like a year ago. It was awesome. But another thing that's sort of like that you don't really think about, at least I don't, is that listening to Final Fantasy for me gave me like more of a glimpse into I guess, well, specifically just like Japanese composers, because I guess even a lot of the video game stuff I listen to and movie stuff is more like Western music.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so because of the Japanese culture, does it have like the Eastern like musical elements in that and like their music?
I don't think I can speak on that accurately, but I there's a difference. Like there's it's weird because I feel like I can kind of just by listening to stuff, I can be like, okay, that's definitely like has some sort of Japanese influence to
Yeah,
it
like
versus
you
like,
can
okay, that's like
tell
a Western
it's
track.
for sure. I was just gonna say that. Like you can tell it's not a Western track.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like even going back to metal bands like Crystal Lake and I think Baby Metal, they're from Japan too. Both of those bands, you can tell like one's metalcore, one's like Baby Metals. I feel like they're just their
Yeah,
own
they're
genre.
their own
But you can
thing.
tell like okay, that's like not something you hear in North
Yeah,
America.
yeah, yeah. So that yeah, that was something really cool to I think sort of expose myself to, and
So
yeah,
the orchestral elements of like the I guess the big band as you I could call it for Final Fantasy, like when they performed live, it was a good show.
yeah, yeah. No, it was awesome, dude. It was
Yeah,
really really
that's
well
really
done.
sick. I
Yeah.
like seeing that. Back in 20, I think it was 2018, I saw my cousin randomly message me. He's like, "Yo, do you want to go see John Carpenter?" I'm like, "John Carpenter, the filmmaker." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "He tours with his band." I'm like, "No way." I'm like, "Let's go for sure." And he played like all his sick like themes, all from his like classic movies from the 80s and 90s, 70s. For me too, like my primary thing on my channel, if you noticed, for film is like horror music.
I
I
did,
just,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm just a sucker for horror movies, and I always loved like the soundtracks to those movies because like of how, I guess subconsciously I didn't realize it until later on, but like they literally parallel horror movie music and
Mm.
metal music. They parallel so well together. And yeah, but going back to John Carpenter, man, if you want to like see how synth music should be done, definitely check out his album.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'll check it out. Yeah.
even like not even you don't even have to. He has his own albums that are not films, so like he does his own synth like music basically, and like they're so like I've been listening to that too recently. They're just so well done.
Speaking on that a bit, I noticed I haven't really noticed any other bands that do this, but um, it's hard to explain. But the way that do you listen to Trivium at all?
Oh yeah, I've mostly been listening to their newest album. I know there's song "Court of the Dragons" on it. I'm not sure what the album's called. I'm terrible with album names.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. For me, their album Shogun,
Yeah,
I almost feel like there is definitely like that okay, that's like the closest thing I've heard to a metal band having like an orchestral sort of film influence to the way they write. I can't like explain it, but just the way some of their riffs are written, their songs are structured, I'm like I feel like they were listening to like movie soundtracks exclusively while when writing this because it mirrors that a lot, and it's just like it's really something I've seen many bands do, and I can't say they did it on purpose. I don't know. I just think for whatever reason when they wrote it, they kind of structured it like that. So
yeah, for
that's
sure.
kind of
You
like
can kind of hear
another
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of another interesting like parallel you can draw from the two I guess genres. Yeah.
I know Matt, he's like I know he's big on social media, but like he does so many side projects where like he'll collaborate with video game music YouTubers or like film music YouTubers.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know he's been doing a lot of that lately, more recently. I feel like too, like he's like that band's really smart, like with the way they present themselves. Because like I know, like 10 years ago, no one really like you had just like that cult following of Trivium fans, whereas now they're like mainstream, like they're everywhere. I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like that strong social media presence that Matt does, because he does like a lot of streaming on Twitch.
Yeah.
He really brought that band I don't want to say he carried it, but like he brought it more to the forefront.
All right, switching gears a little bit. So, when it comes to you and your guitar experience, did you ever find was there ever a moment where like you realized or decided, okay, I'm gonna like pursue guitar and get better at it, or was it kind of like more of a natural thing for you? I know for me, it was definitely there was like a moment in time. You know what? Like this stuff that I'm listening to is awesome. I can't play it, but I want to play it. I'm gonna really sort of make an effort to like consciously improve on this on my instrument on my craft. Was there a moment like that for you, or was it more just sort of gradual and natural?
Yeah, no, actually, like I knew from like the first night like I played guitar, I think like I literally played for like 8 to 9 hours. Like I know for sure a 9 hour jam session happened in my parents' basement, making all sorts of noise that they probably wish that they were like, oh, I wish I never got this instrument. But no. Going back to that, yeah, like I just fell in love with it like right away because like I was always big into music. I always loved listening to music. So being able to actually replicate that through an instrument, like I always wanted to. Like so for me, piano, it wasn't like as much as I liked it. It just wasn't for me. That's so once I finally discovered guitar, I was like, yeah, like this is it. I want to basically play all my favorite songs that I listened to. I want to play it on this instrument. See, like, I basically wanted to be the best that I could possibly be, or be one of the best guitar players ever, kind of thing. But you know, you only get so far that like you're actually capable of doing. So for me, like I'm pretty happy with my like 14-year progress. Like I think I don't want to say that like I'm the best guitar player ever. Like I'm always constantly learning, and I'm always open to learning new things as well. But like, you know I can keep up with like whatever style or someone wants me to play for them, kind of thing. Like I know my worth as a guitar player, basically.
Yeah. It's for me recently, I've been discovering that like pretty much everything that I want to play, I can. You know, which is so weird to think about because it's obviously crazy. For most of my guitar like career, it wasn't like that, right? But I'm just like, yeah, and that I think part of that is just knowing how to learn as well. But yeah, just like at this point, it just feels really awesome to be like, I don't really have like, unless I, you know, find some like something really like crazy, even more to the next level that I want to play. I can pretty much play anything I want, which is just awesome.
Yeah, it's just like the best feeling because like you know like how you know your level of like how what song or what style you can play, and just being open to playing other styles too, like classical guitar, even a bit of like jazz and stuff like that. I think it definitely helps you as a guitar player because like I basically went to university for guitar performance, and that's what I got like my bachelor's degree in. And like I tell you, like those years in university, I feel like that was like my prime, like just because like I was constantly playing like classical oriented and style of music, classical guitar from like, oh geez, guys like from Torrega, France. Forget his name. I know his last name's Soar, but like these like classical guitar composers from like the 1900s, like man, if you just like dig a little deep and try learning their songs, like they really improve your chops 100%.
Okay. That's interesting. So you do play classical guitar then?
Not anymore though.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of sucks. I wish I kept up with it, but there's the thing with classical guitars, you need the nails on the for me the right hand, but I just don't want to maintain that anymore.
Yeah, no, fair enough. It's funny because I've been getting into classical guitar since like September.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So yeah, that's been really fun. It's I know we just talked about it, but I think there also is something nice about not, you know, being able to play what you want to play and like being a bit more like, I think after having been, you know, good and playing guitar for a long time, it's a little nice to go sort of backwards in the sense that like, oh, I don't know my way around the classical like nearly as much as I do the electrical, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
The picking is different, so it's kind of like nice to be like a learner again in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially the classical, I find it's more rough on that left hand of yours. Like it just kind of
yeah.
The width of the neck is bigger. The nylon strings kind of like dig into your calluses, so it definitely is a rougher time on the wrist and left hand.
And getting a good tone out of the nylon strings is also harder.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you really gotta like, you can't half-ass it, you know.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's why you gotta like, if you're gonna like learn a style of guitar, like for me, I was just more into classical music. Again, they kind of bridge over with like film music, so that's why I love classical music as well. But I feel like it's definitely just as good to learn that as well as learning electric guitar and like, learning a Blink 182 song, those easy 4 chord type of songs.
Well, it's interesting because I technically did start out on a classical guitar, but I wasn't playing classical stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
But I was playing on my classical for like 3 years before I actually got my first electric. And something that was just interesting to note was, the electrics generally are like, well, yeah, electrics are slimmer, and the strings aren't as big. So it was actually like, I felt like that made it easier for me to pick electric up,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, it was just something that kind of interesting that I noted, and then now I can like swap back and forth between the two, no problem. So yeah, no, it's just a cool like sort of observation. Something I've been exploring is this concept of like conscious practice, because I do think there's a difference between playing an instrument and like practicing it.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
even when you practice, like let's say you're practicing like a scale or like some sort of like alternate picking run, and you can, you're consistent with it, and you do it for like a month or whatever. Recording you're playing and you're practicing is really important, because like you can practice all day, but I feel like if you don't make a conscious effort to really see what you need to improve on, it's not going to get you like that far. And I think that's because you mentioned before when we were talking how like like a lot of advice out there is just basically just practice.
Oh yeah, just practice. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
The point of this is sort of like, I don't know if we ever talk about how to practice.
Yeah, no, I find like, because again, just going through my teaching experience, like my students, like if I don't tell them like how to practice, they don't know how to practice. Like they just play.
Yeah, like you have to make a conscious effort to be like, okay, I'm like, messing up here. This is why I'm doing this specific type of practice. This is why I practice for this long. You got to figure that stuff out, and I think it's super, super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think recording yourself is a great tool, dude. Honestly, I don't know, I don't know how I'd be learning singing without being able to record myself.
Oh yeah, just making voice notes on your phone. Yeah. I used to do that all the time or even just video record myself too. I think maybe video recording as a guitar player or instrumental player is better in terms of, because you can actually visually see yourself. Like, okay, how did I mess that part up? Let me see how I can improve it. Whereas I think vocals, like you can probably, I don't know, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I feel like it would be better just like as a voice audio, just listening to that playback to yourself rather than visually seeing it.
I think it's probably better, but I think it's better because the thing about your voice is you're, in a sense, you're not actually the best judge of your voice.
Yeah, no, you sound different,
yeah,
right?
You don't
like,
hear yourself like other people hear you, right?
Exactly.
But with a guitar, with instruments in general, I mean, it's not really like that, but in a sense, it kind of is, because
it kind of is, but it's not in your face.
Yeah, exactly.
You can, like, it's subtle,
and that's part of the conscious effort too. Like you have to be paying attention and like have that conscious ear for like, okay, when I'm playing this, what is actually going wrong here?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, back to the vocal thing, one thing I will say that's interesting is like, and this is like specifically for vocals, my teacher kind of gets on me for like how I don't open my mouth big enough to actually like make the notes sound good. And that's something that, like, especially when I was first starting out, that's something I didn't notice at all. But yeah, like I guess in that sense, having a video of yourself is good, because you get to see how big you're opening your mouth. And
okay. You know what? Yeah, that makes sense for sure. I totally forgot about that. Like your actual mouth position, can really make or break like your tone too.
Yeah, and again, I'm still very much a beginner, so like if someone has has more insight into that,
Oh yeah,
let us know.
they can drop it down for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So in that sense, yeah, and in that sense, it's better. Like the video would be helpful for that. But yeah, like in general, I think, yeah, hearing yourself just is super good. I mean, because that's how you get an unbiased like sort of view of your voice, and then
Yeah,
and I think the good thing about that is that you get better because it's like because even for me, I've been singing for 8 months. When I first started, I could kind of just tell things were off, but I couldn't pinpoint like what's wrong with my voice
yeah,
here.
it's hard at the beginning, right?
Yeah,
Just to find that.
and even just recently now I'm able to be like, oh, like I don't think I wasn't like giving myself enough breath support for that, or like I wasn't like I'm really like my tone's really dull, like it's not bright as it should be. That's what's wrong, and then you can kind of figure it out from there. But yeah, I think yeah, just like conscious practice is like conscious intentional practice is sort of like just a
Yeah,
super important thing to keep in mind.
yeah, for sure. Like, and just I think it just it not depends. What's the word I'm looking for? It's the same for all the instruments. Like whatever instrument you're learning, I think just kind of having that conscious practice where like you're very focused and aware of what you're doing, and then you can always pinpoint your mistakes and how to go about improving on those mistakes. Because at the end of the day, like making mistakes is actually, I think, good. Because like if you're perfect off the bat, then it's boring. But making mistakes, it just helps you improve. Like you know what to work on, you know your weak points, and you know so many other areas that can help you advance as a player. And it's just so like rewarding for after you come over that hump. Let's say, let's say you're trying to learn how to sweep pick, and you're doing all these exercises, you do them at like, let's say 90 beats per minute, but like you just can't get it to 100 beats per minute. So like you got to figure out, okay, how am I going to get to 100 beats, even as tedious as going up one beat per session kind of thing, going from 90 one day, next day 91. Like it just, you'll eventually climb up that hill. It just doesn't matter how long it takes you to climb up the hill, as long as you get up the hill. That's the point.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned sweep picking because I know for me, so I don't like something that happens for me with sweep picking is my picking hand will actually it'll go faster than my fretting hand when I sweep. Like that's actually one of my biggest problems. Is
No, for me it's the opposite.
Okay, yeah.
My right hand can't keep up with my left.
So, and I think it's because my mind sort of, if I'm doing something fast and sweepy, my mind kind of like overthinks it. So I'm like, oh, I have to be going really fast here. But then I realize like I'm actually going faster than I need to. And if I just slow down, I can hit and accentuate the notes better. So I wonder for you if it's maybe not that you can't keep up, but that for whatever reason you are just doing it a little slower because just however. So
right.
I mean,
For me, it just like I always found it difficult just like dragging those the picking hand across the strings. Like for me, I still even to this day I get the pick stuck in between strings, so to speak, kind of thing. So that's why when I slow it down and play like at a slow, maybe half speed for a good like 10-15 minutes, and then just bring it back up to regular speed, then like I'm like, okay, I'm warmed up basically. I can get it. I can get it going. Yeah. So like, yeah, going back to like practicing, like there's like a thing to work on, like in terms of, let's say you're trying to learn how to sweep pick. Me, I know a lot of other players too, they just get the right hand stuck, or whatever picking hand they're using. They just get it stuck in between strings. Either for me, it was going up, but I know some people going down the strings, they get it stuck too. So for me, what worked was just playing it at like half speed, or even going a little bit below half. Just whatever slow, comfortable speed is good, and then just gradually increasing it. And then, sometimes like when like, because everyone is different, right? You got to know yourself. So if like you're warmed up by doing it at this slow speed, why not just try it? Like you don't have to go up by like, let's say by 5 beats or 10 beats. You can just go try doing it at that the time that it's supposed to be in, rather than just going up gradually. And if it doesn't work, then go up gradually. See what works for you. It's all, that's what's cool about music. It's all just trial and error. So like just see what works. If it doesn't work, all right, just do plan B, do plan C, and so on.
To go into specifics here a bit, when you're practicing something, when you're practicing to a metronome, trying to get something up to speed, do you, like for me, I try to find, okay, what BPM can I play it like almost perfectly? Like what BPM gives me, what tempo gives me no trouble at all?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I'll try to just go up by like 10-20% maybe. I mean 20 is
Right.
a bit extreme, but like maybe 10%. And I try to find that sweet spot of like, where is it giving me like just enough trouble that I like have to really focus and see my technique, but like not too much trouble to where I can't play it at all. Like do you
Yeah.
find that sweet spot and then build upon that?
Yeah, totally, for sure. It's just once you find that sweet spot, like I would stick with it for
Yeah.
like I'm really extreme, so like you don't have to like go as extreme as like maybe me and you do, because I don't know, me personally, like I think it's like every musician, we're like perfectionists, like we have to get that perfect take, that perfect sound, everything has to be like, you know, lined up to the grid and everything. But I know like in the back of my mind, I'm like, it doesn't have to be like this. It's sort of when everything's too perfect, it just misses, a lot of people say, that human element to it. So like I would just stick with that like specific speed where like I can't play it 100% perfect, but like I can definitely keep up with it and like finish it from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And then it's just finding out the small details and nuances in that specific speed that's like holding you back from like, let's say, just getting it to 100%.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that's literally, like, you put it better than I did. That's literally like how like you improve, right? Like
Yeah.
just
Oh
finding
yeah.
those nuances and little bells and whistles of what's holding you back.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
And that takes like intentional effort, right? Not just like practicing and practicing.
Yeah, like going back to being extreme, like I would just stick with that thing for like a couple hours sometimes, like literally an hour. Yeah, like I was crazy. Like I just wanted to get it so perfect, but I know deep down, like when I got it like perfect, let's say, I kind of looking back at it, I'm like, you know what? I wish it was like a little bit more muddier or dirtier, just to like get that like kind of raw tone out of
Yeah.
it, you know? Because
Yeah.
like even like Kurt Cobain, like he never played anything perfect, like, and it still just had that like those songs, like even though of course like, you know, the production qualities nowadays, the standards are huge difference, but like they still hold up, like that Nevermind album or In Utero from Nirvana. Those albums, I still listen to them to this day, and they still pack a punch as they did back in the early 90s.
Well, it's interesting you said the thing about practicing for hours, because for me, what I found actually really helpful when I was preparing for like a performance I had was there was this one specific like tapping part that was going to be a lot of trouble. And what I did was even just 2 weeks before I had this performance, I wouldn't practice for like hours, but I'd just take a 20-minute chunk in the morning, a 20-minute chunk in the afternoon, and 20-minute chunk like in the evening.
Oh yeah, for
that
sure.
in itself, I swear I almost want to say that was responsible for like half the progress I made.
Yeah,
with that thing.
it's, and like I wish, because like I would spend like hours, like, you know, a couple breaks, maybe 5-10 minute breaks in between, but I feel like when I would like, let's say, okay, it's not working out for me today, like I would spend like 2-3 hours and I'm still making the same mistake at that same spot, and like just be so like you're just frustrated after. And once like you hit that like that boiling point of like frustration, like you're not going to do anything at all. Like you can't even play like a 2 chord song kind of thing. That's just me personally.
No,
So
I agree,
like
yeah.
I found out like slowly, but I would notice that every time I would put down the guitar and let's say, yeah, do it exactly how you did it, because it's funny that you bring that up. When I would prepare for these classical like ensemble performances for university, I would literally just practice like one, maybe 2 lines of the song for like 20 minutes, get it to as good as I could get, and then rest for like, you know, a couple hours, then go back for another 20-30 minutes, and then do maybe like lines 3 to 6 or something. just those lines over and over. Even chunking it out, that's a huge help. That was a huge help for me personally. Just focusing like 3 bars at a time for 5 minutes, then another 3 bars at a time or something for another 5 minutes, kind of piecing it together like a puzzle after. But yeah, again, going back to how you mentioned those like 20-minute intervals of practice, I feel like is way better and more beneficial as a musician. Even just anything in general, whatever you're learning, it's a huge difference. Like I know there's studies on that where they say it's better to do it this way, where in 20-30 minute intervals, like 4 times a day, let's say, rather than like 6 hours or 4 hours straight.
Yeah. I'll also add that those 20 minutes were like they were uninterrupted practice. So there's no distractions from my phone, no distractions from people, just like put the metronome on and just do your thing. 20 minutes, right? It's not
that's that long. So. That's huge because, like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, I find distractions were less, like they were less in your face, whereas nowadays, like you're constantly bombarded by distractions.
I'm planning to have an entire perfect practice episode dedicated to just uninterrupted practice, like how to do it, why it's important, all that stuff.
And that's like, that's a huge. That's a huge way to like benefit yourself as a musician. Just like turn the world off and just focus on that instrument, whatever you're working on.
I mean, even like there's so many studies now about how detrimental just distracted learning is in general, and how like detrimental it is to your focus. Just even little things like getting an email. Like maybe not like once, but if you're constantly getting like emails or like, you know, notifications from your phone,
exactly.
It really does throw off your focus.
I've been actually starting to, every time I'm actually sitting down to practice guitar, I turn off the notifications.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. I can't like, they're just, I notice like I get so distracted and I'm texting, and then those little microseconds just add up to like literally 10 minutes that like you got taken away from like what you could have put into an instrument.
Even, you know, my phone, I don't know why it does this, but my phone will sometimes randomly the screen will just turn on.
Yeah.
So like, even if there's no notification, even if it's in the corner of my eye and I see it turn on, I'm like, I get so distracted by it. I have to just like turn it upside down or something like that. Because I just,
for sure. Yeah. Or even honestly, I think the best thing is just put it in another room now.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah.
I should start definitely doing that.
Yeah.
But going back to those distractions, like even like working in schools, like, geez, dude, these kids nowadays, like there's no chance. Like they just have no chance, man. It's just because like the way everything is just set up, it's just phones, technology, this and that.
Yeah.
I literally see it. They cannot sit still for like 5-10 minutes.
That's interesting. Okay, like you're seeing this stuff like firsthand that I didn't even realize, right? Like,
oh yeah, like don't get me wrong, it's not everyone obviously, but like for sure, like it's just like, you know, doing when scientists conduct these experiments with like, you know, mice or whatever, like one control group is going to be distracted heavily, the other one's not. Obviously, who's going to do worse? The distracted ones, right? And like you can totally see it. Like there's some kids that just it's too much screen time that just like kind of deteriorates their attention span. I see it even with my guitar students. Like I remember one student of mine, not too like 2 weeks ago. He's like, is it almost done? I was like, geez, we just it's like been 15 minutes in. We got another 15 to go. Come on.
maybe it's because like I'm just so like passionate about guitar, but just hearing that in context of a guitar lesson, dude, whoa! Like
if half hour is too long nowadays, I think we're too distracted.
Yeah, I actually have sort of more hope surrounding this issue because around my generation, at least, like I think we're like 10 years apart, right? You're 31, 21.
Yeah, that's it.
My generation, there actually is quite a bit of acknowledgement and like effort people are putting in to reduce like their usage of you know, social media, these online things that sort of waste time and affect your focus and stuff. And I think like we're at a good age to have those messages like put out and everything.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe I'm wrong. Like this is kind of like a super big generalization. I find that people like around your age, like sort of 29, 28, 30, around that age, they aren't affected as much by all of this like the social media stuff. You guys seem to be less, I guess, addicted to it, for lack of a better word, than sort of like someone in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
And I feel like, sort of in a backwards way, again, my generation, at least who I surround myself with, like my friends, they're not like they're not about that life in general. They're
Yeah,
not addicted to
for
their
sure.
social media. They don't have attention span issues. Well, I mean, like, not horrible ones.
Right,
But
right.
my generation grew up with all of this messaging in mind of like, okay, like, you know, you just got to be careful about your general social media usage, phone usage. Where I feel
Yeah.
like maybe the generation older than me didn't really get that. And then your generation was like, maybe, I'm not sure, but like maybe these things weren't as like infectious when you were like at those younger, like,
Yeah.
brainer forming years, like, you know, your teens,
Yeah,
I
well,
guess.
I remember the iPhone like 1 or whatever it was
Oh
called,
shit.
3 or
Okay.
whatever. Like came out when I was like 16 or 17. I know it was in grade 11. So like
Okay.
that
Yeah.
was the first like, smartphone that
Yeah.
like we're like everyone was introduced to. I remember a guy in my class, he showed the iPhone. We were like, whoa, like it's like he like had gold in his hands
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I had like phones for me like came into the mix when I was like in high school. Like I remember like phones were kind of there, cell phones. The old school like brick phones were there when I was like in grade 7, 8-ish. But I got my first phone I think in grade 9 or 10, one of those 2 years.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think it was grade 10 when I was like
Yeah.
15 going on 16. And again, it was just literally for phoning and texting, and that was about it. I think
Okay.
the
Yeah.
most I had on it was like Snake on it, and like
Okay.
that
Yeah.
2D kind of 2-inch screen, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like my generation, if you let it consume you, then you're gonna be just as you're gonna have like less of an attention span than like a goldfish as well. So like I
Yeah.
feel like it's all about balance, because like touching base on what you said like previously was how there is more of the younger generation in their early 20s, mid 20s max, let's say, that are starting to like not use technology and rely on it that much.
Yeah.
And you see it a lot. I feel like you have to look for it online, but I see it with the like guitar community. Yeah, the guitar community. That's got got my train of thought back. But yeah, the guitar community is like sort of notorious for like, I guess, having more of an attention span, like just because of like such younger players nowadays are like as good as like, let's say Eddie Van Halen was back when he was in his prime. And like, let's say his prime was like, mid 20s. I feel like, they're not only just at his level, but like there's like a next level that they're achieving now with like, again, going back to guys like Tim Henson. I think he's like 24 or something like that. Even the whole like, I think it's Scott LePage, the other guitar player in Polyphia. He's like, obviously at his level. Just trying to think of other young guys, but like, I mean, just go on Instagram and see like these guys just like completely shred. You have like 12-year-olds that are like out shredding me, like my 14-year progress. They made it in like 2 years, and like, I'm just happy to see that. Like, it's just so cool to see that there is like still the new generation that are just not only like taking the mantle, but like just inventing like a new standard for guitar oriented music.
I want to assume you went through this phase too, but like I definitely went through a phase where like everything was just about shredding to me, you know?
Yeah.
Just, like,
Yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
just super into it, but like, yeah, now it's like I agree with what you're saying there. I just hope that doesn't like sort of recreate that culture of like, oh, shred is like all that matters, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. It's still cool though, for sure.
It's like in the like I guess the early years of
Yeah.
like this guitar journey of like next level guitar players. Like There was a guy I watched on YouTube, actually. I forgot. I'm going to butcher his name. I know his name's Keon. Maybe you've seen him. He does like crazy, or not crazy, but he does like interviews with like guitar players like Pliny and like other guys. They talk about guitars. He also talks about like recording, audio production, stuff like that.
Okay.
Anyways, he had a cool topic that I saw not too long ago, maybe a few weeks back, where he was like, "Why are guitar players so good nowadays?" And he made the argument of how like the standards back in the 70s and 80s were like this, the standards and the in the 90s and 2000s were like this way, whereas now, because like technology is such a huge part in our culture, it's like, sure, there's the negatives that can affect you where you're constantly distracted, but like at the same time, you have this information age where like literally a few clicks of a button and like you can have the entire library of like exercises, how to get better, doing this, doing that. And I think like having those tools to help you out and using them as a tool rather than, to for like, entertainment purposes, for lack of a better term, but like using them to help you with like improving. I think that's why now you have like these, you have so many, like a dime a dozen of guitar players online that are just like incredible. Yeah. And like that his video really like, it stuck with me. I was like, you know what? Like, it's really true how like they're just, again, it's just that constant generation mentality of like, okay, taking what's been previously done, now how can we make it into something new and into my own? Kind of like how Polyphia does it. I mean, I remember they started out like as like a metalcore, deathcore style like instrumental band, but then they just kept fine-tuning their sound into what it is today, kind of like a mix of like that lo-fi kind of guitar driven music, but with like trap elements and even electronic elements that are in it too, which is like really sick. Like, and you can see in the inspirations, like how it's just a fuse of so many different genres.
Yeah,
Not being like I always say, like, don't be a one-trick pony. You got to learn like everything you can, especially if you want to get good on your instrument. Like, learn everything you can, even the stuff that you don't like. Just take it for what it is, kind of thing.
Yeah. You mentioned how like, I guess we like me and you specifically can have a bit of an extreme approach to like things.
Yeah.
But like, you said this example. I just want to know if it's true. You said that like even turning up your BPM by like 1, like slowly and going up. Did you ever actually do that, or?
I personally didn't.
Okay,
but maybe I should have, for looking back at other exercises. Yeah, or just trying to learn other tunes, because I would try to just like jump to like 15 or 20 like right away, but it doesn't always work that way in your favor.
You know what's kind of messed up, man? I what I'd do sometimes is I'd actually like take the track of whatever I'm playing, like the actual song, put it into my DAW, put it into FL Studio, and actually like speed it up by 5 to 10%. Like maybe when I was, because there's a point where you can start to play something at speed, but it's still not like 100%, right?
Yeah, like it's muddy. I know what you mean. Yeah.
So when that happens, what I sometimes do is like actually speed it up by 5 to 10%. Try to practice to it if I can't just listen to it for a bit. And then when I go back to the regular speed, it actually sounds a lot more like playable and slower to me.
Yeah. Well, that's actually really sick. That never came across my mind to try it that way.
It's like, I don't know, I can't even say if it works, but it's just like a mental thing of like, oh, this isn't that fast. I just listen to it. At like
It kind of you're giving yourself like that placebo effect kind of thing. It's like, this doesn't sound that hard now. So, that's actually really interesting. Yeah, that's cool. I want to try that now.
Yeah, but you mentioned extreme. I'm like, that's to me that's a pretty like goofy thing to do. But hey, it's still cool. Yeah. No, let me know how that goes if you try it, because I don't do it too often, but I've definitely done it like a couple times where I'm like, nothing's changed, but it sounds more playable.
It sounds, for sure.
So kind of an important point here is like, we talked a lot about, practicing, sort of conscious practice, intentional practice, and like sort of the extreme ends of it. But I think like in general, practicing is important, but I also hope that like, I mean, there's a reason why we're doing this, right? It's to show people like how to actually practice so you can optimize that, so you
Yeah,
don't waste hours just practicing and practicing and practicing, because
for sure.
getting better is like important, practicing is important, but I think what is just as fun is like just having fun with it and being able to like don't get
Yeah,
lost in that sort of the practice sauce, I guess. And
for sure.
if you can optimize it so where you don't actually have to spend that much time practicing.
Kind of like yeah, like like there's a big thing now online, the hustle culture. So like that
Yeah.
toxic hustle culture. It's the same mentality now that you brought that up, where like, yeah, now, like you're focusing too much on like perfecting your practice, and like
Yeah.
then you lose the fun, and it's like you kind of forget how to have fun with your
Yeah.
instrument too. And like, yeah, I was like that's definitely one of the mistakes I think that held me back as a guitar player, because I was too much of a perfectionist.
Yep.
I would just get way too frustrated easily sometimes, and it would just hold me back as a guitar player. But yeah, like if I were to tell, if I had the chance to talk to my like self from 10 years ago or 15 years ago from when I first started, I would literally, that's probably the first thing I would say to myself: have fun. Remember you started this because of Guitar Hero, a fun game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So just
It's
have fun with it. Like
yeah.
don't be so anal about being perfect.
Yeah.
There's always, you got to think of it this way: there's always going to be someone better than you. And like
Yeah.
from every single interview I feel like in existence online, I've never seen a guitar player be like, yeah, I'm the best, and that's
Yeah, it's true.
it. They're like, even the greatest guitar players, like someone like Misha from Periphery, like he even says like, oh, I'm okay. Like that's it. If that's okay, then I don't know what like amazing is.
Yeah. For me, like there's something like Tosin Abasi, right? Like
Yeah,
to me, that
another
dude is on
prime
another
example.
level.
Yeah,
Like that
he's
dude is
just
he is transcended our
he's
fucking
he's like
dimension.
alien. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not from this
Yeah.
planet.
But it's just because I've seen a couple interviews with him, and he's just like, yeah, like he's super down to earth. He's not all like
Right.
in his head about it. He's just like, yeah, this is this, and I did this to like do that, and this is something that I think more like people should do, and yeah, I don't know. I just wanted an
They're
excuse to
they're
nerd about
super,
Tosin,
yeah,
I
no,
think.
he's super chill. Like
Yeah,
I've always, even a lot of them, like a lot of these big like name guitar players in the guitar community, like
yeah,
they're really down to earth, humble guys.
yeah. I like what you said about like you don't have to be so anal about practicing, and I think yeah, when you learn how to optimize it and sort of do it properly, you don't even need to, right? Because like you literally
Yeah,
not need as much time to do all sort of the boring practice stuff. So yeah, it's like
exactly.
yeah, it's a message I think I have to make clear with this whole thing, because it's it's perfect practice, but like part of
For
perfect
sure.
practice is like optimizing it and not being super obsessed with it.
I feel like, yeah, that should be like the number one rule, is just like, of course you're trying to obtain that perfect level of practice, but the number one rule is have fun with it.
Yeah,
Like if you're not having fun, then there's literally no point of doing it. It's just like, like playing a sport or something. If you're not having fun, then like
yeah,
why are you playing? Why are you wasting your time with something that's like not giving you pleasure?
yeah, yeah,
I always found it like, yeah, like when you have to treat it like a chore, I always never understood that mentality where it's like, oh, like I want to be the best, but like I have to like play it this way and make sure that it's at like X amount of BPMs, and I got to get it in like 3 to 5 takes when I record. If you have to do it like in this process, it's like it's too manufactured then, and like you lose that human element to it, which is like nowadays a lot of that in, I guess, modern music is kind of lost. But I feel like that old school recording style where like people are playing live with each other, let's say, like I know this is kind of an older album, but one of the early Suicide Silence albums, I remember they recorded it like live in an actual live studio, and you can tell the difference when
mhm,
it's like that live, or just just that human aspect is included in the music, you can really hear it and tell the difference. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love like my processed music. Like, I still love hearing like how modern metal sounds nowadays, because like those production elements are just great. But at the same time too, like, don't neglect where everything came from. Like, you can hear some mistakes from like old Beatles records and it's fine. Like, you still like, are you gonna sit here and argue and say the Beatles are bad because they have wrong notes in their song? Is like, really? Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't even have anything to add to that. Yeah, I agree with that totally. Like I guess it's a thing of balance again, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's just there's definitely something to be said about like the human element for sure, and like you said, it's like you might not be able to pinpoint it, but you can definitely hear something about it, that sort of sticks and resonates with you. Um, it's kind of I didn't even realize we did this, but we kind of like looped back to the beginning of like not
yeah,
holding
right,
not holding these like sort of musical ideals so hard in your head and just
right,
learning how to
right.
have fun with it.
That's true. That's crazy. Full
Yeah, like
circle here.
yeah,
But even what you said earlier about like also just still having that mindset where, it's just like that discipline. You got to know what you're achieving and like why you're doing this. But
yeah,
also, like, for me, that number one thing is have fun with it as well.
yeah. Another sort of like thing to think about to I guess combat that like super rigid like practice mindset is that like, well, I mean, if you want to write music, like you don't need to be like crazy good at your instrument to write music. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
like writing is an,
I agree with that.
yeah, I mean, we all know like writing is a completely different skill
That's
than
like a
playing.
different, totally
Yeah.
different beast for sure.
Yeah, and I think in a sense I think like writing simple music is kind of hard actually. It might
It,
even be,
it, it is,
yeah.
yeah.
But like yeah, I guess that's just something I'd go back and tell myself is like, dude, you don't need to like play like all these crazy guys to write good music. Like you
As
just
they
have to.
say, they nowadays they say try to stay away from the riff salad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's something I like my older stuff definitely did.
Oh yeah, I was a riff salad connoisseur back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah,
I've had like all types of awesome dressings and balsamic vinegar on it,
yeah,
but it still had no. But see, that's the thing. You don't. It's not catchy. It just like,
yeah,
okay, cool. You can play at 190 BPM and like
yeah,
make
yeah,
these crazy. Play like 58 notes in like 30 seconds,
yeah.
but is it catchy? Does it stick in your head? Can you like sing it out of can you hum it kind of
Yeah.
thing?
It's really interesting. Like I really view playing, practicing, and writing as like three separate avenues of music, right? And it's even now with the stuff I'm writing, I noticed like the stuff I'm writing with my band is I'm sort of overqualified for it in a way. Like the stuff that I want to write now is like it's not even that complex as some of the stuff that I wrote. Like it's not complex in terms of like guitar and the technique.
Right.
Maybe in like some of the way we arrange it, maybe, but like, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how much music you write, but I found for me like my actual skill cap, I tend to write music that's like below it generally.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. I totally see like that mentality. I can relate with
Yeah,
that.
and it's not something I do consciously. It's just something that sort of happens. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, no, because I don't know, like, have you been listening to I guess like music with like simpler structures? Or
like
like is
recently.
yeah, like, or is it generally still like kind of like the
Um,
same? Because like sometimes I feel like, when you subconsciously are writing a certain way, I feel like sometimes what you're listening to can kind of like dictate that, kind of like
I
leaks into your own music.
I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, like I call those like unconscious influences. Like
Yeah.
you'll write something and you're like actually what'll happen to me is I'll write something, someone will ask me like, "Oh, did you like were you thinking of this band or was it inspired by this band?" I'm like, "No." And then I listen to it again, I listened to like the band stuff. I'm like, that actually is pretty similar. And I did
It's
used to listen to these guys, but I wasn't
Right,
thinking about
right.
it. But no, for me, I actually don't think so, dude. I think I'm listening to stuff that's sort of more. Well, um, I've been listening to a lot of Era recently,
Mm.
and the new Meshuggah stuff that came out, I'm still listening to that. Um, Born of Osiris, The Eternal Rain, which is, I mean, that's actually relatively like simpler stuff, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah.
Volumes, his newest album, Happier. And then I got some like I always have After the Barrel in my playlist, like, you know.
Oh,
So
for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I actually, I mean, maybe this is it, maybe it isn't, but one thing I've been getting into is that I didn't expect is there's a punk band called Refused, and I wasn't even like after I got into metal, I just punk never appealed to me. But I
Yeah,
started listening to them, and it's like there's something kind of like we said, like we were just talking about. There's something about like music that's simpler, especially when I've been listening to all this sort of like more intricate metal stuff.
yeah, yeah.
To me, there's something appealing about punk, about like it's simple. There's more of a raw energy to it,
For
and
sure.
then
Yeah.
Refuse specifically, I find I don't. They probably do it on purpose, but like they have like some like stuff that like some of their guitar work does mimic metal. So it's really interesting to kind of like see that. But yeah, that's like the other thing I've sort of been getting into.
Yeah, that's cool. They kind of bridge those lines together. Yeah. I feel like because the core genres in metal are like have a lot of heavy influence from like punk, even
Yeah, for
hardcore
sure.
as well. And yeah, like it's funny you say you're listening to more new Meshuggah and Era, because their songs now, I feel like even Meshuggah too, and on that recent album that they last released, it's more of a simpler song structure. So maybe that kind of has like
That
that,
that's actually
yeah, it has
true.
that like subconscious like planted seed at the back of your head that kind of leaks into the music. That's why maybe you create simpler structures, because like I mean I've noticed that too, like ever since I listened to like Lorna Shore's most recent album, like it's all that pop style structure where it's like verse chorus
Yeah,
verse breakdown bridge kind of thing.
it's
And like yeah, like I find that structure just resonates a lot better nowadays.
yeah, it's interesting because I actually remember reading an interview from Era saying that I think they said they like toned things down a little bit for their
Yeah,
newest record, and I
right.
even yeah, like comparing the songs versus the songs from comparing their songs from like their newest self-titled,
So
even versus
like
like Drift, like yeah, they
yeah,
actually
yeah.
are structured quite differently.
Yeah, for sure.
I think for my music, it's not, or my band's music, it's not necessarily the structure that's like the structure is relatively simple, but even the riffs I find that I write, I know we talked about it a bit before, but like the reason I love Meshuggah and After the Burial so much is because I think they understand like rhythmical momentum so well. Like I mean that's
That's the pulse. That's like
like
the heartbeat of every song, right?
yeah, like to mention Bleed again. Bleed is like all rhythm basically.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
for
that's
sure.
the entire song.
Like yeah, like theory wise, I think like it's a very simple song. You're just like playing the open string, let's say, for X amount of
Yeah,
times or whatever. But yeah, like the rhythm though of it is
yeah.
just next level.
And then like even besides that, I can't think of like a specific song, but like yeah, they just understand that stuff so well,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
even they're good at because they can go do really complex rhythm stuff. They can also do somewhat more simple rhythm stuff, but still have like their sort of like unique vibe and feel
for
to it. And I
sure.
just yeah, for
Yeah,
me, I think that definitely shows in my music writing is like, well, if we get the rhythm down, have like these just nice rhythms and understand the momentum of the song. We don't really have to have stuff that's super complex, because that's the stuff I like, right? After
Yeah.
the Burial is a little bit different, where they definitely have some like these crazy like riffs and stuff, but
Yeah.
even in those songs, like those guys understand rhythm really well.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I know like a lot of their popular songs too are very um, like heavily rhythm based, even
Yep.
though like they'll still have some like pretty challenging, I'll call them riffs, but like for the most part, it's like the rhythm that's
Yeah.
like hard to nail sometimes.
Lost in the Static's a perfect example.
I was literally just gonna
Yeah.
bring that up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like one where like they have some nasty riffs in there, and like they're you know you got to spend a few minutes or a few some time on them, but you
Yeah.
can nail them as a intermediate guitar player, let's say. But like nailing the rhythm though, like some of those breakdowns, like I feel like they you got to definitely like listen to them a lot in
Yeah.
order to like get what that rhythm is.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Geez, I didn't
yeah.
even see the timing there. It freaking flew by.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I had a ton of fun talking about this stuff,
Yeah, yeah, same here, man, for
because it's
sure.
like,
But yeah, it was really cool chatting to you about all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I really appreciate you having me on here. It was a lot of fun.
yeah, for sure, man. I mean, uh, yeah, like I already said, yeah, it was a ton of fun on my end too.
Yeah,
So I guess, yeah, if you just want to sort of like plug your channel or whatever social media stuff you want, you can just go ahead and do that before we end.
yeah, for sure. So my YouTube is, just type in CZitoMusic, all one word. You'll find me on there. Got a ton of videos, so guitar lessons and like I would say horror film music. If you're into that, I cover a lot of Halloween themes and John Carpenter. So if you guys like that, you can definitely stop by and check it out. Yeah, the guitar lessons, I like to do lessons on stuff that has like no tabs on it. So like I'm known for like Knocked Loose and Boundaries and like that style of like hardcore music for guitar lessons. And I'm more active on Twitter. So same thing, CZitoMusic, all one word. And Instagram here and there, CZitoMusic as well. But yeah, my primary one is like Twitter.
Cool. I'll link all those in the description too. All right, damn. I thought my voice would be more tired, but it's not. It's
Yeah, I know, me too. I thought it would be a little more, yeah, I thought I'd be a little more tired too, but yeah, I'm actually, now I feel like going to practice now.
yeah, nice.